If you don't have the trust of your firm with accurate data, then you're really cooked. Good quality data is the foundation of any strategy, an IT strategy, an innovation strategy. You're just not going to be able to leverage AI effectively if you don't have that foundation.
My name's Tom Baldwin. This is Overruled by Data, the podcast for law firms looking to start their data journey or accelerate the journey they're already on. Brought to you by Integrata. Today's guests are helping define what modern legal data excellence looks like, from building next-generation platforms to driving adoption across the business of law. Lisa Mayo Haynes is the Director of Technology Innovation at Ballard Spahr, leading the design and deployment of secure, intuitive tools that create measurable impact for lawyers and clients. Under her direction, the firm's advanced from a traditional enterprise data warehouse to a modern lakehouse platform powering analytics, self-service, and AI across the Ballard 360 ecosystem, and its suite of generative AI applications, including Ask Ellis, Ballard X-Ray, and KYC, and a KYC capability. Her leadership has earned global recognition, the Financial Times Innovative Lawyers North American Intrapreneur finalist in 2024, Corporate Council Women Influence and Power in Law Innovative Leadership honoree, Legal Intelligencer Innovative Award finalist, and ILTA Trailblazer Award for 2025. And the Ballard Spahr Silo AI collaboration. Microsoft profiled her team for saving over $2 million in unplanned losses, cutting proposal times down by 2 hours, and trimming research time by 60%. Bloomberg Law credited the program with driving 30% profitability growth from 2019 to 2022. Joining her is Ian Lopez, whose work centers around increasing efficiency and finding the best solutions for lawyers at Ballard. This runs the gamut from creating dashboards that surface key insights to managing the generative AI platforms that the firm has bought and built, ensuring that lawyers have access to the correct and most efficient tools for their use cases. Together, Lisa and Ian represent two very complementary sides of the legal data transformation product and platform innovation on one hand, and data strategy and adoption on the other hand. Lisa and Ian, welcome to Overruled by Data.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
So Lisa, let's start with you. Your path from technologist to Director of Technology and Innovation at Ballard Spahr spanned data management, analytics, and now AI. What connects those chapters?
Well, even though it's a very long journey, decades long, it all has been kind of a logical connection. I started my technology career as a developer, and developers always have their own ideas about how data should best be organized. At that time, there was no one at the firm that was performing the DBA function. So I started to organize our data in the way I saw that it should be. And I later asked for my title to be changed. So from there, I progressed to actually leading. Even though I had a DBA title, I led a group of developers in a separate department. And then fast forward to 2018 when we merged with Linquist and Venom, and I moved into the innovation department. And that's where we really had the greatest traction with our innovation efforts around data and analytics. And now in my technology innovation role, I'm at the forefront of some really exciting change.
I want to circle back to the origin story for you in a second. But Ian, tell us a little bit about how you entered legal data. It's not like something people say, when I grow up, I want to do this for a living. And what first drew you to the power of analytics?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I sort of stumbled into it, but I was always really interested in when you drill down and really got into the data, how it affected people and outcomes, right? It's not just numbers. Honestly, math is actually not my strongest suit, but the analytics piece of it and sort of the trend monitoring, that I find really interesting, and you can apply it in so many different ways. And so I started at a law firm prior to working at Ballard, and then was hired here, and it just really opened my eyes to how much more we could do with data and analytics, dashboards, and really thinking about it from an attorney's perspective and from a business of law perspective. What numbers and visualizations can we put in front of the people who need to make a decision quickly? We have time to dig into it. They don't. And so just sort of trying to marry the data with the business of law was really interesting to me. And of course, as Lisa said, now that AI has come on the scene, it's a whole new world that we're, engaging with and sort of trying to work into the culture at the firm.
So Lisa, you said something interesting. You started off as a developer doing DBA work. You kind of fell into it. There was probably this moment, and if you could share the details, that would be always fun, is there's always a moment where someone like has this epiphany or / panic attack. And they're like, I don't have what I need to do the thing I'm being asked to do. What was that moment for you when you were at the firm that you realized the power or the lack of having data created anxiety?
Yeah, I realized that we did not have data that was always accurate, relevant, timely, and complete. And that created bottlenecks for firm management because they had reports that maybe the financial team had to reissue because there was a mistake or something in the system behaved in a way we didn't expect. Or maybe there were duplicate data points, for instance. And so because there were duplicate data points, they didn't know which one was complete or which one was correct. And so that really led to problems. If firm management can't trust the data that you're giving it or that the accounting and financial team is giving it, then that's a serious problem. And so that's kind of when we knew we had to do something different.
And Ian, same question for you. Was there some sort of like a project or a moment of time where you realized how important it was? And a sub B to that is someone who's self-identified as not being comfortable with math, but yet here you are working with data. I wonder if that actually helps you a little bit, because a lot of lawyers would say that they also probably are not the most comfortable around numbers. Does that help you in positioning what you're delivering to them in a way that's more bite-sized and easy to digest?
Yes, definitely. I think it also helped more in the sense of being okay with asking for help. I think in the data world, right, it's okay to not understand something. And so I always say, there are smarter people in the room than me. And so really bringing different groups at the firm in under one umbrella to do the project. I think the math deficiency, which I'm not terrible at it, it's just not my strongest suit, but has allowed, I think, our team in general, which we're really good at, is connecting with different groups and bringing them in. I think what I realized was, and I'll give a ton of credit to Lisa and the team before I joined, they had built out this EDW, the Enterprise Data Warehouse. And so that was all done when I came on the scene. And so I realized that we were now able to be predictive in our data and analytics instead of reactive, using data to say, this is what we're expecting to happen versus getting it right now and having to react. And that really sort of changed the way that I saw things, because it allowed us to help people prepare for good and bad versus having to constantly play catch up. And we've extended that to our clients as well through dashboards and analytics for them.
Lisa, maybe you could give us a snapshot of Ballard's client value and innovation function.
The Enterprise Data Warehouse is definitely the foundation for that program, whether we're looking at pricing and alternative fee arrangements, or we're looking at reporting or dashboards that we give to our clients that provide trending and analysis and things like that. And so that Enterprise Data Warehouse is really the function. We were creating that, didn't know it was happening, but we were creating our EDW at the same time as Foundations was being promoted. So they're very similar tools. The difference is we built ours in-house. But everything that the client value and innovation function creates or uses leverages that strong data foundation. And we've most recently converted that to a Fabric Lakehouse.
Yeah, and I want to circle back to that in a little bit, because there's very few firms that haven't done some sort of data warehousing initiative, whether it's a small subset of people data or maybe a more well-established EDW that you build. And I want to circle back to that in a little bit to kind of double click on your decision to move to that platform? Because for a lot of firms, they're all kind of in this mode like, hey, what we have works and I know how to manage it. I've been a SQL DBA for 20 years and this stuff makes sense to me. This Fabric stuff is new, or Databricks, right? It's all net new stuff. So I'd love to circle back to that because we will in a second. Ian, from your standpoint, what's the structure or partnership for cross-departmental data? How's that successful?
So I'll actually say that we're very good with integrating with the other teams, with the sort of more analytics data focused team, even with marketing. So it's really just about, I think, kind of communicating. We've set weekly or monthly sort of check-ins with the different departments. This question of how do you work cross-functionally, I don't think is as complicated as it needs to be. It's sort of a simple, open line of communication and really helping each other, right? I know that we can go to the other teams that are parallel to us, and they'll be able to assist. The more challenging piece has been how to interface with the lawyers, because it's I don't blame them, right? Every minute counts for them, and how to be most efficient in interacting with them, in delivering what we built, in getting the requirements gathering with them. That has been a real fun, but definitely challenging lesson in engaging with them in a way that works best for them.
We're going to dive into that a bit more, because I think one of the missing pieces in most data programs is thinking about it in isolation, that it's owned by IT, when in reality it's the business. And I love the fact you're so focused on the business of law, because I think in most firms it's heavily skewed towards the practice, which makes perfect sense. But it's sort of like the red-headed stepchild is the business side, which there's lots of use cases there, right? But you need collaboration with all the groups between HR, finance, marketing, professional development, KM, IT, everybody. But before we do that, though, I want to circle back to Lisa's comment about that shift from your EDW to a lakehouse architecture. Many firms we talk to are kind of struggling with this internal debate. We've got something that kind of works. Why would we change? What capabilities did that unlock for you?
Oh my goodness, loads of capabilities. So even before generative AI, we knew that we wanted to do more with our data and be able to give our lawyers predictions about what may happen with their book of business. And so our lakehouse, really, the main advantage is, number one, it allows us to have structured data and unstructured data in the same repository. We can now take all of that and join it together. So we may have this unstructured data that's coming from some API or some website that now we can marry with our client data and present in a single dashboard. That's the beauty of what we were doing. And then, of course, having it in a lakehouse is also now unlocking artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities. It's allowing us to do things like client segmentation, which is what we're doing with our Know Your Client solution. It allows us to find patterns and trends that humans can't derive on our own. We can also now chat with our data with the advent of generative AI. We can also add additional features to it. And we don't have to worry about some of the previous constraints like SQL updates and things like that. So it's really unlocked a whole new suite of opportunities for us as a firm.
Lisa, what would you say to somebody who is really struggling with this decision? You might have had that own kind of thought bubble, like, boy, do I really want to kind of scrap? Like, my baby is just fine. Are you telling me my baby's ugly? Like, no, like, this is great. I built this thing. It's been around for 15 years. I know how to use it. I know how to manipulate it. It's good. It does everything it's supposed to.
No, we knew that it had issues. It had issues with effective dated information. As I mentioned, we had duplicate data fields in different systems. So, for instance, a person's law school class, as the firm sees it, where should that live? Should it be in HR? Should it live in the accounting system? So it was really trying to mediate, I won't say disputes, but disparities where we saw them, and to be able to really have that single source of the truth. And once we had that, that's what made our data so valuable, because people could use the data and know that it was coming from the source of truth, and they could have confidence in that data.
Ian said predictive, not reactive. I wrote that down because I thought that's really smart. I think most systems are so backward looking, and we're used to that in the market, but that's not what the lawyers need looking forward. Was there ever a point in time where you did have to, without naming names and getting in trouble, but was there ever a group that was a little bit harder to work with, where you felt like they were maybe not on board with this whole lakehouse thing, and they like to have their data silo and they didn't want anyone to see it? And if so, how'd you overcome that sort of cultural or personal barrier that they raised?
Well, probably the hardest group back then, and it's not the stakeholders, but the individuals within accounting, because we're kind of disrupting everything they know with our systems. They were using a lot of access databases, as I said, that did not calculate effective dated information properly. These databases were slow, clunky. Just not the actual best use case for access databases. And it was like prying, we had to pry their hands away from access. But once they started to see the value and became confident in the data, guess what? We're getting the same, when you run it in Access and it takes 20 minutes to run this one query, you can come into the financial dashboards and get the same data in 30 seconds, for instance. And so it was really about gaining their trust in the work that we were doing. But yeah, that's just the par for the course. Accounting people have their processes, and that's that. And very often they don't want to change. But we got some very progressive leadership who was all in and, worked with us and we worked with her to convert every single one of those databases into either a dashboard or a Power BI bookmark that they could save for later on. So we were able to do that with her support.
And thinking about the early days, were there a win or two, some early kind of outcomes that gave you a little wind in your sails, where you could say, hey, look, I know we just did this. Here's an example of something that really we couldn't have done before, or used to take 30 minutes and now it's 20 seconds. Were there any early wins that you used to kind of sell it internally?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely the having timely, relevant, accurate, and complete information. We did have a former off-the-shelf system, which was kind of self-contained, which meant you couldn't really marry its data with other systems. You couldn't change the processes. One of the failures, of course, was if a lawyer took over a client or matter mid-year. Under this old system, all of that fee revenue went to the new lawyer. And so just imagine the amount of back-end work that was involved in reshuffling, revenue so that it appeared properly for both the new lawyer and the former lawyer, so that they both got credit for that. So that was a really big deal. Again, using effective data, point in time data, so that if we are looking back in time or looking at current information, that we have accuracy as far as who has credit for bringing in this fee revenue and the billings. That was a really big deal once we got comfortable with that. And even, that was a big deal on the data side. On the generative AI side, I would say like our biggest win has definitely been our internally built chatbot, Ask Ellis, because it's just an entree into the world of generative AI, and it's making people get very comfortable with the whole idea of prompting, how to interact with these tools, and, just trying to continue to foster AI literacy the same way as we focused on data literacy.
Ian, so Lisa talks a lot about effective dating, which is near and dear to my heart. And certainly anytime you can properly recognize revenue for a partner's book, you're going to be speaking their language. How do you ensure those insights translated into decisions for leadership?
I'll use two examples, actually. One is internal, that we're working on piloting right now, and it's a to that predictive note, it's a way of the attorneys being able to see their current book and how much of that has actually come in, and then using that data to predict what the rest of the year is going to look like. Obviously, there's some times when that's not going to be all that relevant, right? January is going to be very difficult. October, at that point, you're pretty aware. But for those months in the middle where you're not sure, we built out a min-max variable so that they can see, okay, this is the worst case and this is the best case, and here's where I'm at now. And track where they're going so that they can say, okay, here's where I have to focus. And it's just for them, right? It's not a comparison or anything like that, but it allows them to see not only where am I, but what can happen if I do X, Y, Z. And that's that sort of predictive piece, right? We're not just saying, okay, you're at 60% of your goal and it's halfway through the year. We're saying you're at 60% of your goal, it's halfway through the year, and here's where you can be with these various changes. And then we've done the same thing in our legislative dashboards for clients. It's not financial, but we brought in legislation data so that they can be prepared, so that they can see what is coming out, what Congress is passing, and adjust accordingly, so that they are not in breach, so they don't get sued, right? We're working to prevent that from happening. And that's just part of what Ballard offers to our clients as a value add. And it's got the same tools that show the trend and the analysis and bills coming out, and you can drill down by status of the bill, you can drill down by topics, so that you can really get a big look at what's out there, what's happening, and how you need to pivot potentially as a business.
Awesome. Okay, now we're pivoting into the show where we like to talk about lessons learned, kind of opportunities for things to do differently. During the implementation of your lakehouse, was there an aspect of it or something you didn't land quite the way you wanted? Were there any assumptions you made, or how did you adapt your process either during the deployment or post go live?
Well, I'll tell you what ended up happening. We had just started to move our EDW to the cloud, working with a trusted technology partner, and everything was going well. And then about a month or two in, we found out that Microsoft was launching Fabric. We weren't going that route because there was no Fabric. We started reading about it, and everything we read said if you're in the very early stages of converting or you haven't started, pivot and go with the Fabric route. And that was huge for us to actually make a decision, like, we are going to stop what we're doing and we're going to go this way. But I think I know now that we made the right decision. So we would have been fine as is using Azure Synapse and all of that. But the way that Fabric is marrying the data engineering and the data science and the data architecture, all of that into one tool really is huge for us. I mean, it wasn't that we were on the wrong track, but we had to quickly...
A better track emerged for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And being not afraid to say, okay, we're going to go this way.
So in that process, you go to Fabric, you're an early adopter. Mm-hmm. Whether it's Fabric or Snowflake or Databricks, if you take sort of the tooling out of it, was there anything along the way that if you were to go start this project again from scratch, that you would say, hey, we did it this way and it worked out, we got to where we needed to go, but doing this over, I would do this differently?
Mm-hmm. I think the one thing we would do is we built out our semantic layers. We created a lot of measures that were very specifically time-centered. So a 5-year revenue number, a 3-year revenue number. And, as the technology evolved, both for Power BI and Fabric, we realized we didn't have to do that. We could have just... had the metrics in there. And then we decided, okay, we want to see these metrics for year to date, for going back 1 year without having to explicitly create.
Great. Yeah. And was that
Right?
sort of a carryover from just the old way you had to do things in
It really
in an EDW?
was.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. But really impactful in terms of speed to delivery, to not have to spell out all of those different fields. So that was a really big deal for us.
You often say adoption hinges on data confidence. Do you have any tactics for creating trust in numbers amongst the partnership?
Yeah, unfortunately, you have to just put the work in. We took a very deliberate process when we first rolled out our financial dashboards. We wanted every timekeeper, starting with the partners, to be data literate and understand what they were seeing and how to get to what they needed. So I would actually sit with them, each one of them individually, and find out. First question I would ask is, what data do you need to see on a daily basis? And then we would go through and I would show them how to get to that answer. And if it wasn't something that was readily apparent, I would create Power BI shortcuts for them so that they would know, okay, just go into this menu item and click and quickly find insights. And like I said, it's a lot of work. But when it comes to like compensation, when you're talking about allocations and the drivers of it, partners know their data. And so when they were able to answer their questions with confidence and have the data to back it up, that confidence really grew. And you could always tell when we were getting close to allocations because we started getting either requests for the same types of reports. But the nice thing is we could show them how to get it themselves. And like I said, they weren't questioning where the numbers came from. So everyone had confidence in their data.
So it sounds like it was really kind of a boots on the ground guerrilla warfare, like one at a time, partner by partner. Yeah. Sometimes that's the only way to do it, right?
Unfortunately, yes, especially because when some partners are basically solo practitioners, other partners, work with a team or maybe they're a practice group leader. You add in department chair leaders and then, of course, firm management. Everyone has a different way of looking at these dashboards and what's important to them. And so we need to find out, again, what do you need on a daily basis? And then we would zero in on that.
When you start to have this level of access to data, you need to have governance and access controls in place so that people are seeing what they're supposed to see. What's proven to be most effective and useful for you in governing and controlling access inside of the Lakehouse?
We actually have a great homegrown security mechanism. It's actually a Power App that was built by my colleague, Steve Magnuson.
Oh, yeah, Steve's amazing. Yeah.
He is amazing. Yes. He was a huge part of this whole effort. But this security mechanism uses basics about a person, like their job position, their office, their department, their primary practice group, to add users automatically to the appropriate Azure security groups. And those security groups drive data access. So we know that if someone is an office managing partner in the Baltimore office, then we know based on those credentials automatically who they should be able to see. And then he built the system flexibly enough that we can also enter date-based overrides with expiration dates and things like that. And even an explanation, who requested this? Why are we giving this person an override to see data that they normally would not be able to see? And then, of course, we put a Power BI dashboard on top of that security mechanism so that we could go in. One of the huge wins was our chief was asked, who can see financials at a firm level? She went in all by herself and was able to get that information using the dashboard on top of the security mechanism. And so now we even use it for our custom developed apps as well.
Amazing.
I mean, if you really think about it, everything is, it's like who's in your little circle. And that's what this security mechanism does, is it automates who's in your circle.
The observability piece to that is often underlooked unless you've lived that morning or afternoon when someone comes into your office and asks a very pointed question and you know why. they're asking that, and they're not going to want to wait a day or a week. That's awesome. That is so cool. That's amazing. Okay, switching gears to, we talked about some, hey, what would you do differently? Let's talk about what you all are proud of. Ian, what project are you most proud of, or something you did that visibly changed the behavior either of a practice, a lawyer, or a client outcome?
So I'm going to take us a little bit down the AI route just a bit. I do think that AI and data are so interconnected that separating them is sort of silly. But we have brought on a handful of third-party vendors, third-party technology partners that have created tools that our attorneys use. And the process by which I'm really, really happy with the usage, with the feedback, with how excited they've been. They come and say that it saved them time. It's allowed them to prepare for client meetings. We are deploying these tools throughout the firm. So it's not just the attorneys who are using them. We're allowing LAAs or people in the, the research area, the document repository group. We're allowing them to use it so that it's a full partnership across the firm. But I think the best part of that has really been our intake process. We do not just give out the tool. So it's really grown organically by word of mouth. And so typically an attorney will come to us and say, what can I use XYZ? And we'll have a 15-minute meeting with them to see what it is they need. Sometimes it is a much more data-heavy tool, something in our Ballard 360 platform that we built before AI was on the scene. Sometimes it is, in fact, an AI tool. But we have created, not only to create relationships with the attorneys, which is awesome, but we are really coming at it from a solution-driven standpoint, not just we made this purchase or we built a tool because we thought it would be good. It's what can we do for you? How can we listen, understand what you need, and then direct you to the right place? Because that's really our job as innovators and sort of solution-driven business professionals, is to get them to the right tool and to understand where they're coming from, not just sign them up for the easiest thing just because we made the purchase. And that has really informed what we've both purchased externally and built internally, because we will do demos and say, you know what, our team can build this. We don't need to pay.
Yeah.
So, and we can create this in-house. And so I think that our process is really, really good.
That's amazing. Lisa, same question for you, but I'm going to narrow it down a little bit. Between Ask Ellis, Ballard X-Ray, or the Know Your Client initiative, which are you most proud of and why?
I would say Ask Ellis, because that solved the problem of being able to use generative AI against client or firm data without worrying about data leakage. And even if they're not uploading client or firm data, everyone writes multiple emails every day. Doesn't matter what your position at the firm is. And Ask Ellis just elevates our writing. And I'm especially proud of the full suite of products that we have created. We have Draft. Ian has built pre-built prompts so that people don't have to worry about what to say when they're drafting emails or blog posts or more. We have the Analyze feature, which does let lawyers upload several documents at once and pick whatever output, if it's tabular or in a paragraph or bullet point list. These tools are saving our lawyers significant time doing non-billable work. And the great thing about them is it's a safe entree into the generative AI world. We even tell them to use it for personal use. Use it if you're planning a trip, a weekend trip, or you're going to Europe and you want to see what are the activities that are available. So really, really proud of it. It's a very flexible tool. We're always adding additional assistance, trying to make it better. They can download whatever document or visual or whatever's created that Ask Ellis creates. They can download it and reuse it So I'm really proud of that because, and as far as user adoption, I mean, we just hit 900 users. So that is over half of the firm. So that is
Wow.
really, really good.
That's amazing.
Yes, we're very proud of the adoption rate with Ask Ellis.
Lisa isn't good at talking about herself, but she had the foresight when AI first sort of exploded to build this on an internal tenant. And so from the jump, she saw we're going to need to make sure that this stays secure in our environment. And because we started from that place we had a consulting firm that we worked with to build this, we were able to be so far ahead of, I think, a lot of other firms because we had started from this place of, okay, we are doing security first, right? And that's data security. The lawyers won't use it if they don't feel like their data is going to be safe and secure. And so that is our utmost first top priority. And from the beginning, that sort of took center stage, and then everything flowed from there, and it made it so much easier to have it built, to encourage adoption, because from the beginning, we weren't worried about the security.
You were mentioning adoption, and firms can define this all kinds of ways. How do y'all define adoption?
I would say we look at who's using the tool, but then we look at how often they're using the tool. And so we don't just present a metric of, oh, we have this many users on the tool. We look at who has used it. Maybe they signed in one time and they haven't signed in since. And so we try to follow up with those folks and find out, were they just curious? Did it not meet their needs? We try to find out, so we call them irregular users. We try to find out why they did not continue using the tool. And sometimes it's that they needed a more complicated tool. And that's okay too, because we have, like Ian said, we have tools that we've built ourselves, but then of course we have tools that we've invested in also that we've purchased. And so our job really is to find, what is the right tool for that lawyer and for his particular use case, his or her particular use case.
And also each tool's different, right? We're not applying the same metric to each one. Some tools like Ask Ellis, we'd love them to be using every day. Other tools that we have, document analysis or upload, drafting tools, maybe they use it once a month. Maybe legal research tools, or, with the caveat, of course, that everything has to be checked and verified. But tools like that, maybe they're using once a week. So we've worked internally and also worked with the owners, right, the builders of the tool, either internal or external, to figure out, okay, what is our goal here? What are we building this for or buying this for? And then what is the metric based on that? Because to apply one metric across all of them wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good way to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about ROI and usage, those two kind of go hand in hand. So you've done, I think, Lisa, a tremendous job of socializing sort of the bottom line, effectiveness, which is harder to do on certain AI use cases where you don't have a way to quantify it. So what metrics do you look for, or that you've reported on, and how do you communicate those results, both internally and sharing externally?
When you look at AI, what are the metrics? Cost savings, revenue gains, time saved, and client satisfaction. And so that's what we look at. Now, every tool is not going to meet all four. But for instance, you mentioned, Tom, the tool we built with our Ballard X-ray that saves $2 million in unbillable time. And basically, it sounds like a lot, but it's really simple. It's 2 hours per RFP per partner. And if every partner is responding to one RFP per quarter, that brings you to that $2 million in savings. So it sounds small, but it's just an example of how small incremental changes can make a huge difference for your firm. And then, our Silo product, it's not our product, of course. Silo is a startup, but we're working with them, and that takes all of the boxes because we're saving money. We're not using tens of contract attorneys sitting in a room for months. So we're saving money on that front. We are saving time because instead of them sitting in a room for 4 or 5 months, we're getting it done in a week or two with higher accuracy results. We're using Silo to increase our revenue because now we're able to charge a generative AI fee, and we're saving. And again, I mentioned the time saving. And of course, the client is saving money. Our clients are saving hundreds of thousands of dollars using Silo for complex litigation. So I always love to talk about Silo because it ticks all of the boxes. And it's just a great tool that's been very well received and has very concrete ROI that we can associate with it.
And internally, we're working on building out a tracker that looks at the usage for all of our tools. Obviously, as I said before, they'll be different in terms of the goals, the benchmarks that we're looking for, but we'll be able to see this all on one page. And we can set our own goals, right? And then we can show this to firm management as a report to see where we're succeeding, where we need to maybe focus a bit more. And maybe we have to say, you know what, this tool's no longer working, and that's okay too. We're not tied to any one thing. The only other sort of more nebulous piece, I think, is we get a lot of qualitative feedback, right? The quantitative is easy. But we do take into account an email from a partner saying, this was amazing. I'm so happy with this tool, right? And so engaging with those people who are champions of the various tools and helping that to grow organically is also another kind of measurement of ROI that's harder to track, but I would say equally as important.
So lightning round, a couple more topics here. You mentioned Silo. What's next on Ballard's AI roadmap, and how are you leveraging the Lakehouse in support of those new initiatives?
Great question. So agentic AI is what's next. Some use cases are around client name matching with our CRM data, but using generative AI to match against client names that are in our Lakehouse and do that really, really quickly. Lots of reasons for that, either for leads or government lists where lawyers want us to say, is any of my clients on this list, where there's literally thousands of entities. So things like that. We're leveraging our Lakehouse data paired with AI to search those clients in just really a couple of minutes. I think Jason has it down to like 5 minutes now, searching thousands of clients. And so we want to automate the work that first level workers are performing. It's not so that they can lose their jobs, but so that they can move on to more valuable, engaging work.
Where do you see intelligent agents, co-pilots fitting into the workflow of the firm in the next year or two?
I think they're going to be an integral part. What Microsoft has designed with Microsoft Graph technology on top of M365 and Copilot, that is unleashing all kinds of amazing capabilities, including the integrations that they have with multiple systems, ServiceNow, Workday, you name it. And so we look forward to people being able to, instead of sending emails, waiting for someone to respond, more self-service, more quicker feedback, things like that.
If you could future-proof one capability, what would it be?
I would say it's still all about the data. It's always going to be about data quality, no matter what you're doing. If it's generative AI or Lakehouse data, where you're building dashboards on top of it, even agents that might be going and grabbing data and reporting that back. If you don't have the trust of your firm with accurate data, then you're really cooked. So, I mean, really good quality data is the foundation of any strategy, an IT strategy, an innovation strategy. You're just not going to be able to leverage AI effectively if you don't have that foundation. And that's the thing to future-proof, in my opinion.
So turning that on its head, right? Now you've got let's say you're a firm that doesn't have any of this, and they're of the mindset that like, boy, I love this idea of a lake house, but our data is not good. We need the perfect, I've got to have a data strat. I've got to have all these things in place because I am going to light at this lake house and I'm going to see bad data and our lawyers won't accept that. Like, what would you say to a firm that's sort of in this mode of like, I need to spend a year or two getting everything perfect and then I could start to look at a platform?
I'd say it doesn't have to be perfect. However, the financial data should be, because if you lose them there, then they're not going to come back. But get your financial data perfect, get your people data perfect. You know, you want to know, if you look back 5 years, what role that person was in, what was their billing rate at that time, and their billable hours target. Get that right. Once you have that, you can at least start to democratize your data and share it, and you can start to build on. So you don't need a lake house that has everything under the sun in it, but get the people and the financial data right. And then you can start to add additional, like I mentioned, unstructured data. You can start to bolt on additional features as you go. And it should always be evolving, right?
I think that's where the difference is, right? The data has to be perfect. The way that you implement it, that you can move fast and fail fast, and that's okay, right? The way that you're delivering it might not be the best. And if you change that halfway through, or you switch it, or the visual looks different, the dashboard looks different, the data in there looks different, that's okay, right? You engage with the people who you're giving the deliverable to, you take the feedback, and you work from there. But if the underlying data itself isn't right, then like Lisa said, you're cooked.
Lisa and Ian, thank you so much for sharing your journey and insights with us today. For our listeners, I hope this conversation reinforces a theme we come back to often on overruled data. Start building your platform and let the strategy grow alongside it. Well, that's it for this episode. If you enjoyed today's conversation, hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode again. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Overruled by Data. Thanks, everybody. That's a wrap for this episode of Overruled by Data. If this podcast resonated with you, if you took one or two things away from it, you want to hear more from law firm leaders that have been there and done that, hit the follow button.